We begin in Sudan, where airstrikes have pounded the capital Khartoum. That's despite the extension of a faltering ceasefire for another 72 hours on humanitarian grounds. The United Nations Secretary General is sending a special envoy to Sudan to coordinate humanitarian operations as fighting between rival military factions enters a third week. More than 500 people have died in the violence between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffiths, said he would explore how to bring aid to the millions of Sudanese people whose lives have been turned upside down. Meanwhile, the regional head of the World Health Organization says Sudan's fragile healthcare system was being destroyed by the fighting. Residents in the capital say they're running out of basic supplies.
As you know, today is the 16th day of the war. There is a big problem with safety. We hear the sounds of artillery from this side. It can fall in the street in front or the one behind. We have to sleep on the floor. There is no water or electricity. There is no food. All shops are closed, and the ones which are open sell products at expensive prices. We hardly eat what is enough for us. We only eat one meal per day so that the little food supplies we have are enough.
Well, continuing fighting is making it difficult for thousands of people trying to leave Sudan. Many are making a treacherous journey to Port Sudan on the northeastern coast to board evacuation ships. Thousands are packed into the area. Several waited for days for a chance to leave. Many of them are Syrians who fled their civil war in their own country and have now been uprooted again.
Sudan is living through a moment of real terror, real terror. I'm talking about dead bodies in the streets. We smelled the dead bodies as we were coming from Khartoum. The firing, the shelling. Sudan is seriously in a state of real war. We are around 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. The number is large inside the port and also along the Corniche. People are sleeping on the ground, widows, children, elderly, the ill, everyone. We are sitting here in a place, and may God bless them that they were able to provide a space for us at all, but we are sitting on the ground. Most of the people are sitting on their bags. We are all coming from places that are far away, most of us from Khartoum.
Well, Rise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi has been monitoring developments in the region, and he joins me now live from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Good to see you, Mark. Tell us more about the current focus of the fighting in Sudan. We understand it's particularly fierce in Darfur, where there's been an outbreak of tribal violence.
Yes, indeed. Violence in Darfur, as has been cleared for quite a while, has actually escalated, taking on a tribal angle, making it more deadly and pushing more refugees towards the border of Sudan with Chad, trying to plead the violence. It is also widely expected that if this fighting continue in Darfur, that regional powers will also will see some of their rebels and different factions get into Darfur and create an even harsher situation, if I can call it that. So yes, the situation in Darfur is worse. It has taken a tribal angle, and it is expected that if it continues, various rebel factions plus the governments of neighboring countries might also get involved in the war. And it is quite clear that then Sudan probably will be in a civil war, which will be very hard for them to come out of.
And the situation in the capital, Khartoum, remains precarious, doesn't it? I mean, there have been several ceasefires, but none of them have been properly observed, and the conditions there remain unpredictable.
Indeed, the conditions are unpredictable for all the citizens who are living in Khartoum. They are unable to plan their exits if they are trying to flee the violence. They are unable to plan when to go buy food. We've seen that crime and various vices have increased, so access to food and safety is becoming a problem. Let's not forget that only about 20% of the hospitals are operating, the rest are inoperational. So even the injured are not receiving the help they need. So Khartoum is becoming a place that even the World Food Program is looking to expand what it is doing there. Remember, Charles, that 50 million people were on aid in Sudan before this particular spurt of violence started. So you can only imagine how many more people need aid, both within Khartoum and in the surrounding regions where some of them have also run to.
Well, Mark, let's get a further assessment from you of the aid response in Sudan, because, I mean, we're seeing the UN sending a special envoy, Martin Griffiths, to Sudan to try and get a grip on aid and ensure that some relief is getting through.
Well, it is very difficult because remember, for humanitarian aid to work, they need safe corridors to pass through. They need access both to ports and airports so that they can deliver this all-important aid to the needy. Now, the problem is the two generals have decided that the fighting is insensate. They have not created any form of humanitarian corridor. So the reason even the envoy is being sent is to try and create a semblance of a corridor through which needy people can receive aid. And this is a dire situation because remember, as I've said before, many Sudanese already depended on aid to be able to survive.
I mean, I wonder, Mark, if there is any sense at all that this crisis is likely to be resolved soon from your assessment, because, I mean, there are many years' worth of issues that have come to the fore in the most violent ways, in addition, of course, to this being a raw power struggle between two very powerful generals.
Indeed. Omar al-Bashir outdid himself in ensuring that he had two competing generals who he thought would not throw him out, but it seems they are unable to overthrow each other. And what is sad for this country is these people consider themselves to be militarily equal. Their propaganda machinery keeps confusing the people. And their hardline stances have hardly changed in the 17 days or so that this conflict has continued. In 2 weeks that this conflict has continued. And it is becoming dire because they are not giving, one, any conditions they have for peace to lay down their arms. They are not willing to work with each other. And even worse, Charles, the situation in Darfur, where now the tribal element and different factions are away from the RSF and the army are actually fighting. So if this continues, I do not see a situation where Sudan will not descend into all-out civil war.
And of course, Mark, on paper, they have one relatively straightforward issue to resolve, which is how to integrate their two forces into one relatively coherent Sudanese military. But behind that, as you've alluded to, are a host of other concerns, including interests and ties and connections, and all of this gets in the way of a transmission to a democratic rule that should have begun years ago. But I mean, these deadly enemies, as you told us, have come so far from that democratic process that it must be hard to see how any of that can proceed at all.
Indeed, it's been clear since they took over the civilian protests to oust Bashir, and they ousted Bashir themselves, and then they did a coup against Prime Minister Hamdok, removed him from office in the name of defending democracy. They've never intended to defend democracy. The two generals want to be in power. Look at Hemeti, for example, former Janjaweed leader, now rebaptized into RSF leader. But an influentially wealthy person within Sudan with political ambitions. So even when he's imagining about democracy, for Hemeti as the leader of the RSF, he is totally focused on his own wealth, his own power, and his own increase. And the same is true of the army general. He is someone who is heavily economically invested in the country. He gained a lot of power and wealth during Omar al-Bashir's time, and he's interested in maintaining that power and that wealth for his own person. So these are two people who do not see a Sudan in which they are not in power and they are not in control, whether politically or economically.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark Bichachi is Arise East Africa correspondent, and he was talking to me there from Nairobi.